Do-hyun Kim stared at the message on his datapad for the third time. The words hadn't changed, but he kept hoping they would. The assignment was simple on paper. Travel to Station Calith 9, figure out why it went silent, and fix whatever was broken. In reality, nothing about this job felt simple. He sat in the cramped briefing room at Galactic Frontier Station Epsilon 7, surrounded by walls covered in star maps and maintenance schedules. The room smelled like recycled air and coffee that had been sitting too long. Commander Walters, a heavy-set man with tired eyes, watched him from across the table. "You understand the situation?" Walters asked. 3 Vrithian technicians went dark. "All at once." 3 weeks ago, Do-hyun said. He tapped his fingers on the table. "You want me to go alone?" The Vrithians requested a human engineer specifically. They've tried sending their own people. None came back. Do-hyun raised an eyebrow. "And that doesn't concern you?" Walters shrugged. "You've fixed worse. That reactor leak on Proxima Station. The gravity failure on the mining colony. You always find a way." What Walters didn't say, but Do-hyun understood clearly, was that he was expendable. He asked too many questions. He broke too many rules. If something happened to him out there, the Unified Engineering Corps wouldn't lose sleep over it. "When do I leave?" Do-hyun asked. "Transport leaves in 2 hours. Pilot's already waiting." Do-hyun gathered his equipment and made his way to the docking bay. His boots echoed on the metal floor as he walked through the corridor. Other workers moved past him, barely giving him a glance. He'd been doing this for 8 years now, moving from one broken station to another, solving problems that no one else wanted to touch. The transport ship was small, designed for quick trips between stations. A woman leaned against the hull, checking something on her wrist computer. She looked up when he approached. "You're the engineer?" she asked. "Do-hyun Kim," he said, offering his hand. She shook it firmly. "Salmon Bay, I'll be flying you out there." She had short, dark hair and eyes that seemed to evaluate everything around her. "You know this is probably a one-way trip, right?" "Always the optimist," Do-hyun said, loading his equipment onto the ship. "I'm a realist. The Vrethians don't ask for help unless something's really wrong, and they definitely don't ask humans for help." Salmon walked up the ramp into the ship. "They think we're primitive, too emotional, too unpredictable." "Maybe that's exactly what they need right now," Do-hyun said, following her inside. The ship's interior was functional but clean. Salmon took her seat at the controls while Do-hyun strapped himself into the passenger seat behind her. The engines hummed to life, and within minutes they were leaving the station behind. Space stretched out before them, vast and dark. Stars dotted the blackness like scattered diamonds. Do-hyun had seen this view hundreds of times, but it never got old. Out here, human problems seemed small. Out here, you could forget that people back on Earth were fighting over resources and territory. Out here, there were bigger things to worry about. "So what do you know about Station Calith 9? Salmon asked as they jumped to faster-than-light travel. "Not much. It's a monitoring station. Sits near some kind of spatial anomaly. The Vrethians have been studying it for decades." "Spatial anomaly," Salmon repeated. "That's a fancy way of saying weird thing in space that we don't understand." "Pretty much." They traveled in silence for a while. The ship's computer tracked their progress, counting down the distance to their destination. Do-hyun reviewed the technical specifications of the station on his datapad. Standard Vrethian construction. Power core, life support, research labs, living quarters. Everything looked normal in the blueprints. "Can I ask you something?" Salmon said, breaking the silence. "Sure." "Why do you keep taking these jobs? The dangerous ones. The ones where they send you alone." Do-hyun thought about it. "Someone has to do them. And I'm good at fixing things." "That's not an answer." He smiled slightly. "Maybe I like the challenge. Maybe I don't fit in back on Earth anymore. Maybe it doesn't matter." Salmon glanced back at him. "It matters. Don't let them convince you it doesn't." 2 hours later, Station Calith 9 appeared on their sensors. It hung in the darkness like a forgotten toy, its lights off, its communication arrays silent. Behind it, barely visible, was the anomaly, a shimmering distortion in space that bent light in strange ways. Salmon brought the ship closer, running scans. Structures intact. No signs of damage, no power signatures, no life signs. "Can you get me to the main airlock?" "I can try." "But Do-hyun? I don't like this. The station looks fine from out here, but something made 3 trained technicians disappear." "I know," he said, checking his suit. Keep the engines running. If I don't contact you within 6 hours, leave. I'm not leaving you here. That's an order from command. If something goes wrong, you get out. He looked at her directly. Promise me. Salmon's jaw tightened, but she nodded. 6 hours. She maneuvered the ship to the station's main airlock. Do-hyun put on his helmet, sealed his suit, and checked all the connections. The suit's systems came online one by one. Oxygen, temperature control, communication, sensors. Everything was working. He entered the airlock of the transport ship and waited while it cycled. Through the window, he could see the dark station waiting for him. His heart beat faster. Fear was natural. Fear kept you alert. Fear kept you alive. The outer door opened. He activated his magnetic boots and pushed off, floating across the short distance between the ships. The station's hull was cold and lifeless under his hands. He made his way to the airlock. That's when he noticed something strange. The airlock controls showed that it had been sealed manually from the inside. Someone had locked it deliberately, not from the outside trying to keep something out, from the inside trying to keep something in. Do-hyun pulled out his override tool and connected it to the control panel. It took 10 minutes to break through the security. The whole time he kept expecting something to happen. For lights to come on, for a voice to speak, for something to move inside the station. Nothing happened. The airlock finally opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Do-hyun's helmet lights cut through the darkness inside. He could see a corridor stretching ahead, empty and silent. He stepped inside, and the airlock door closed behind him with a sound that felt far too final. His suit sensors immediately started showing readings that didn't make sense. Organic material detected, but not Vrethian. Not any species in the galactic database. His computer kept trying to match the readings and failing. "Summon, are you reading this?" he said into his helmet communicator. "I'm reading it." "What the hell is that?" "I don't know yet." Do-hyun moved forward slowly, his light sweeping across the corridor. "But I'm going to find out." The station was completely dark. Emergency power should have kicked in automatically, but nothing worked. He could hear his own breathing inside the helmet, steady and calm despite the situation. His boots made soft clanging sounds on the metal floor. Something was very wrong here. He could feel it in his bones. This wasn't just a technical failure. This wasn't just a power outage. Something had happened on the station. Something that made 3 experienced technicians disappear. Something that left behind biological readings that shouldn't exist. And now Do-hyun was alone in the dark, walking deeper into whatever mystery waited for him. He thought about Somin's question. Why did he keep taking jobs like this? Maybe because someone had to walk into the darkness. Someone had to find the answers. Someone had to be willing to face the unknown. He just wished he knew what he was facing. The darkness inside Station Calith 9 was absolute. Do-hyun's helmet lights created small circles of visibility, but beyond that nothing existed. He moved through the main corridor slowly, checking each room as he passed. Storage closets. Equipment lockers. All empty. All untouched. The station's layout matched the blueprints on his datapad, which was something. At least he knew where he was going. The main control room was 3 levels up. That would be his first destination. If he could restore power, he could access the station's logs and find out what happened. His boots clanged softly on the metal stairs as he climbed. The sound echoed in the emptiness, making the station feel even more abandoned. He tried not to think about what the organic readings on his sensors meant. One problem at a time. On the second level, he found the first body. A Vrethian technician lay against the wall, its insectoid body curled in what looked like a defensive position. Do-hyun knelt beside it, his lights illuminating the alien's features. Vrethians looked like giant mantises with long limbs and triangular heads. This one's exoskeleton was intact. No visible injuries, no signs of violence, but clutched in its front limbs was a datapad. Do-hyun carefully removed the device. The screen was cracked, but it still had power. He connected it to his suit computer and tried to access the files. Most of them were corrupted, broken into fragments of unreadable code. But he managed to pull out a few log entries. The latest entry was dated 3 weeks ago. The text was jumbled, but he could make out some words. Frequency, anomaly, seeing things, not real, not real. What did that mean? He stored the datapad in his equipment bag and continued climbing. His heart rate had increased. He could hear it in his helmet beating faster. The station felt wrong, not just broken, Wrong. The third level opened into a wider space. Living quarters. The doors to several rooms stood open. Do-hyun checked each one. Empty beds. Personal items left behind. A meal half-eaten in one room, now covered in mold. Then he heard something. A soft sound. Like breathing. Or crying. He froze, his hand moving to the toolkit at his belt. "Hello?" He called out. "This is Engineer Do-hyun Kim. I'm here to help." Silence. Then the sound again, coming from a room at the end of the corridor. Do-hyun approached slowly. The door was sealed, its control panel showing a manual lock from inside. "Is someone in there?" "Stay back," a voice shouted, human speaking Korean. "Don't come any closer." "I'm human too," Do-hyun said, relief flooding through him. "I'm here to help. Can you open the door?" There was a long pause. Then the lock clicked, and the door slid open a crack. Light spilled out, a small emergency lamp. A face appeared in the gap, pale and exhausted. A woman, maybe in her 30s, with dark circles under her eyes. "You're really human?" she asked. "Yes." Do-hyun Kim, Unified Engineering Corps. "Who are you?" The door opened wider. The woman looked at him carefully, as if checking to make sure he was real. "Ji-ho Park, I'm a xenobiologist. I was visiting the station when it happened. When what happened?" Ji-ho stepped aside, letting him see into the room. It was a medical bay, and on one of the beds lay a Vrethian. Young by the look of it, with damage to one of its limbs. The Vrethian's eyes were open, watching him with an expression he couldn't read. "This is Hyun," Ji-ho said. "She's the only other survivor." Do-hyun entered the room, and the door sealed behind him. The medical bay had emergency power, which explained the light. Equipment beeped softly, monitoring Hyun's vital signs. "How long have you been here?" Do-hyun asked. 6 days. Maybe 7. "I've lost track." Ji-ho sat down heavily in a chair. She looked exhausted. "I've been keeping Hyun alive with whatever I could find. Medical supplies are running low." "What happened to everyone else?" Ji-ho's hand shook slightly. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me." She took a deep breath. The anomaly. The spatial distortion the station was monitoring. About 2 months ago it started changing, emitting some kind of frequency. The Vrethians started acting strange. They said they could hear things, see things. Patterns in the anomaly that weren't there before. Hallucinations? That's what we thought at first. But it only affected the Vrethians. The human staff reported nothing unusual. The Vrethians became obsessed with the anomaly. They stopped eating, stopped sleeping. Just stared at it for hours. Do-hyun glanced at Hyun. The young Vrethian hadn't moved, just kept watching them. What did they see? They said it was a message. A presence. Something trying to communicate. Ji-ho stood and walked to a computer terminal. She pulled up a series of images. They started analyzing the station's foundation, running scans of the structure itself. And they found something. The images showed layers of the station's construction, but underneath the Vrethian architecture, there was something else. Older structures. Different materials. Not Vrethian at all. "This station wasn't built by the Vrethians," Ji-ho said. "They found an existing structure and built on top of it. They never knew what was underneath. Never bothered to check." Do-hyun studied the images. "How old is the original structure?" "Best guess?" 10,000 years. Maybe older. The number hung in the air. 10,000 years. That was before the Vrethians had spaceflight. Before most current galactic civilizations existed. The captain, Kelthar, ordered everyone to stop working on the lower levels. Ji-ho continued. But the other Vrethians wouldn't listen. They kept going down there, trying to access whatever was below. And then 3 weeks ago everything went wrong at once. Define wrong. The power failed. The communications went dead. The Vrethians started attacking each other. Some kind of madness. They were trying to get to the control room, trying to open something. Hyun and I barely made it here before they sealed us in. Where are they now? The other Vrethians? Ji-ho's face went pale. I don't know. I haven't left this room, and I'm not going to. She grabbed Do-hyun's arm. Whatever's down there, whatever they woke up, you can't let it out. You can't go to the lower levels. Do-hyun looked at her tired eyes at Hyun lying on the medical bed, at the sealed door keeping them safe. He thought about the corrupted data pad, the dead technician on the stairs, the organic readings his sensors had detected. I need to restore power, he said. Can you tell me what systems are still working? Emergency power in this room. That's it. Everything else is dead. The reactor? Offline. Manually shut down. So someone had done this deliberately. Turned off the power, cut the communications, sealed the station. Trying to contain something. I'm going to the control room, Do-hyun said. I'll try to get systems back online from there. You're not listening, Ji-ho said, her voice rising. Something is down there. Something that drove the Vrethians insane. If you turn the power back on, if you open the lower levels, we can't stay here forever. You said it yourself. Medical supplies are running out. We need power, we need communications, we need to call for help. Ji-ho stared at him for a long moment. Then she reached into a cabinet and pulled out a data chip. This is the last video log from Captain Kelthar. Recorded right before everything went dark. Watch it before you do anything stupid. Do-hyun took the chip. I'll be careful. That's not enough, Ji-ho said quietly. But I don't think you have a choice. He left the medical bay, the door sealing behind him once more. The corridor stretched ahead, darker than before. He plugged the data chip into his suit computer and played the video. Captain Kelthar appeared, a large Vrethian with scarred exoskeleton. The video was shaky, showing a control room in chaos. Sparks flew from damaged panels. Emergency lights flashed. This is Captain Kelthar, the Vrethian said, its voice clicking and harsh.
Final log entry.
Station Calith 9. To anyone who receives this message, do not attempt to enter this station. Do not attempt to repair it. Let it die. The captain moved closer to the camera. They were here first. This was their watchtower. We built on top of their grave, and now they're waking up. The frequency from the anomaly isn't a message. It's a key. It's unlocking something that should have stayed locked forever. Behind the captain, something moved in the shadows. Kelthar didn't notice or didn't care. We tried to stop it, we failed. If you're watching this, if you're human, maybe you have a chance. Maybe your minds work differently. Maybe you can resist what we couldn't. The captain's eyes seemed to focus directly on the camera. But I warn you, what sleeps below does not sleep quietly. And when it wakes, the video cut off suddenly, replaced by static. Do-hyun stood in the dark corridor, his breathing loud in his helmet. He looked down at his hands. They were steady. That was good. Fear was useful, but panic would get him killed. He continued toward the control room. Whatever was happening here, whatever had happened, he needed answers. And answers meant power. Answers meant systems online. Answers meant going deeper into the station, even if Ji-ho was right. Even if something terrible waited below. The control room door appeared ahead. It was sealed, but his override tool could handle that. As he worked on the lock, his sensors picked up something strange. The organic readings were stronger here, closer. The door slid open and he stepped inside. Then the lights came on. Not the control room lights. His helmet lights went dark as if something had drained their power. But all around him, throughout the station, systems began to activate. Panels glowed. Computers hummed to life. The floor vibrated with the sound of machinery. Do-hyun stood frozen in the control room, watching the anomaly pulse through the viewport. The patterns moved across its surface like living things, swirling and changing. His mind tried to make sense of what he was seeing, but the shapes refused to hold still long enough to understand. Do-hyun, respond. Salman's voice crackled in his helmet. The station's power just spiked. I'm reading massive energy outputs. What's going on? I didn't turn anything on, he said, moving to the control panels. The systems activated themselves. That's not possible. I know. His fingers moved across the panels, calling up logs and system reports. The data scrolled past too fast to read properly. I'm going to the lower levels. I need to see what the Vrethians found down there. Ji-ho told you not to go down there. Ji-ho's scared. I need facts. He studied the station map on the screen. Below the Vrethian sections, the map showed something strange. Empty space where there should be foundation supports. Or not empty. The sensors couldn't quite decide what was there. At least let me come with you, Salman said. No. Keep the ship ready. If this goes bad, someone needs to get word back to command. Do-hyun, that's final. He closed the channel and left the control room. The station felt different now with power restored. Emergency lights cast everything in red. The hum of machinery filled the corridors. But instead of feeling safer, Do-hyun felt more exposed. Like the station was watching him now. Like something knew he was here. He made his way back to the medical bay. Ji-ho opened the door immediately, her face pale. You felt it, didn't you? When the power came back, felt what? Like something opened its eyes. Do-hyun didn't answer, but his silence was answer enough. He moved past her to where Hyun lay on the medical bed. The young Vrethian's eyes were open, focused on him. Can she talk? A little. She's weak. He knelt beside the bed. Hyun, I need to know what's below us. What did you find in the lower levels? The Vrethian's head turned slightly. Her voice came out in clicks and whistles, which his suit computer translated into words. Old, very old. Not ours, before us. Before everything. What is it? A ship? A building? A prison. Hyun's eyes closed briefly. Watchtower. Guard post. Something locked inside the anomaly. Something the old ones feared. Who were the old ones? Dead. Long dead. But their machines still work. Still keeping watch. Still keeping it locked away. Do-hyun felt a chill run through him. The Vrethians tried to open it. Couldn't help it. The voice. So beautiful. So promising. Showing us what we could be. What we could know. Hyun's voice grew stronger, more animated. Everything. All knowledge. All answers. Just had to let it out. Just had to open the door. Jiho grabbed Do-hyun's arm, pulling him back. She's getting worse. The influence is stronger now that the power's on. We have to go down there, Do-hyun said. We have to see what this is. Are you insane? Look at her. Look at what it did to all of them. You said humans weren't affected. Neither you nor the other human staff heard the voice. Maybe we can resist it. Jiho stared at him. Or maybe we'll find out why humans are immune in the worst possible way. He met her eyes. Do you have a better idea? She didn't. After a long moment, she nodded. We seal Hyun in here first. Make sure she can't follow us. They secured the medical bay, locking it from the outside. Hyun didn't protest. She just lay there, humming something that made Do-hyun's teeth hurt. The lower levels weren't on the standard station maps. Do-hyun had to access the deeper system files to find the route. A maintenance shaft on the lowest Vrethian level led down into the older structure. Someone had welded the hatch shut, but Do-hyun's cutting torch made quick work of it. The hatch opened onto darkness. His helmet lights revealed a shaft descending deeper than his lights could reach. A ladder was built into the wall, old and covered in something that looked like frost but wasn't quite cold. Last chance to turn back, Jiho said. You don't have to come. Like hell, I'm staying up here alone. They climbed down. The ladder went on, far deeper than the station's blueprint suggested. The walls around them changed as they descended. The clean Vrethian metal gave way to something else, a dark material that seemed to absorb light. Crystalline patterns ran through it, pulsing faintly with bioluminescence. This is impossible, Jiho whispered. This structure predates anything in the galactic records. How can you tell? The materials. The construction method. We've studied ruins from a dozen ancient civilizations. This doesn't match any of them. They reached the bottom of the shaft. A corridor stretched ahead, the crystalline patterns growing thicker on the walls. The patterns almost looked like writing, or circuit diagrams, or maybe both. Do-hyun touched one of the crystals with his gloved hand. It pulsed brighter for a moment, then returned to its dim glow. Some kind of technology. Biological technology, Jiho said, examining it closer. The crystals are grown, not manufactured. They're alive in some way. The corridor led to a larger chamber. Do-hyun's light swept across the space, revealing something that made him stop breathing for a moment. It was a control room. But not like any control room he'd ever seen. The walls were covered entirely in the crystalline structures, all pulsing in synchronized patterns. In the center of the room stood a pillar of pure crystal, easily 3 meters tall. Inside it, something moved, light or energy or something he had no words for. By all the stars, Jiho breathed. Do-hyun approached the pillar carefully. As he got closer, the crystals on the walls pulsed faster. The light inside the pillar swirled and formed shapes, images, holographic displays of some kind. He saw star maps, thousands of systems connected by lines of light. He saw ships, enormous vessels with designs that made Vrethian technology look primitive. He saw worlds, civilizations, beings that walked on 2 legs and had 2 arms and looked almost human, he whispered, but not quite human. Taller, different proportions. Strange features that were close but wrong, like someone had tried to draw a human from a description but had never seen one. These are the builders, Jiho said, her voice shaking. The ones who made this place. But they look like us. How is that possible? Do-hyun reached out to touch the pillar, drawn by something he couldn't explain. His glove made contact with the crystal surface. Pain exploded through his hand. Not physical pain, something else, information. Raw data pouring directly into his mind. He tried to pull away but couldn't. The crystal held him, showed him, taught him. He saw the builders. The Talvarin, they called themselves. An ancient race that had spread across the galaxy when humanity was still learning to make fire. They had built wonders, discovered secrets, reached heights of knowledge that modern civilizations couldn't imagine, and they had found something. Out in the deep dark between galaxies, a presence, ancient beyond measure, powerful beyond comprehension, beautiful beyond description, terrible beyond understanding. The first speaker, they called it, the last of its kind. A being from before the current universe existed. It had knowledge that could save everyone, technology that could cure all diseases, power that could make any species into gods. All it asked was to be released from its prison. All it wanted was to help. The Talvarin had been tempted. So tempted. The first speaker showed them visions of what they could become, what they could achieve, what they could know, but they had learned the truth just in time. The first speaker wasn't offering salvation. It was offering infection. A virus that spread through advanced consciousness. It didn't destroy minds, it consumed them, absorbed them, added them to itself. The gift was a trap. The knowledge was poison. The beauty was a lie covering something unspeakable. The Talvarin had sacrificed everything to lock it away. They built prisons across the galaxy, watchtowers to maintain the seals, and then, knowing that any advanced civilization would eventually be tempted as they were, they did something desperate. They scattered themselves, broke their species apart, seeded themselves across distant worlds, letting evolution and time change them, making sure that when their descendants reached the stars, they would be different enough, diverse enough, hopefully immune enough. Humanity wasn't just similar to the Talvarin. Humans were Talvarin, changed by tens of thousands of years, but still carrying the key in their DNA, still carrying the immunity. The crystal released him. Do-hyun fell backward, gasping. Jiho caught him, held him up. What did you see? Everything, he managed. The truth. Why we're here. What we really are. He looked at his hand. The glove was torn where he'd touched the crystal. A small cut on his palm bled slowly. A single drop of red blood hit the crystal pillar. The entire chamber exploded into light. The crystals on every wall lit up like stars. The pillar blazed so bright they had to look away. Around them, holographic displays sprang into existence. Text scrolled past in languages Do-hyun somehow understood. Star maps showed locations across the galaxy. Systems diagrams revealed the full scope of the containment network. 12 sites, 12 prisons, 12 watchtowers, all of them failing, all of them weakening after 10,000 years without maintenance, all of them needing guardians, all of them waiting for the Talvarin descendants to return. A voice filled his mind, not spoken aloud, not transmitted through his helmet. Direct and clear, bypassing his ears entirely. Bloodline confirmed. Guardian protocols initiated. Welcome home, child of the Talvarin. 4 hours. Do-hyun stared at the holographic displays showing the approaching Vrethian fleet. 23 ships moving in perfect formation, their paths locked on Station Calith 9. Behind them, the anomaly pulsed brighter with each passing moment, like something excited. Like something that knew freedom was close. Talk to me, Jiho said, her hand gripping his arm. What are our options? Do-hyun forced himself to think. 3 choices. The voice in his mind had made them clear. Maintain the seal, release the first speaker, or reset the containment field. But that third option came with a cost he wasn't sure he could pay. The station's computer system has all the data, he said, pulling up files on the nearest display. Everything the Talvarin knew about the first speaker. Everything they learned before they locked it away. They read in silence. The truth was worse than Do-hyun had thought. The first speaker claimed to be a teacher, a guide. It promised knowledge beyond imagination, cures for every disease, solutions to every problem, technology that could reshape reality itself. And it could deliver on those promises. It had done so before with other species, other civilizations that no longer existed. The cost was simple. Accept its help and it would share your mind. Connect with it and it would show you wonders. All it asked was to be part of you, to exist within your consciousness, to guide your thoughts, except it didn't guide. It consumed, slowly, gently. By the time you realized what was happening, there was nothing left of you. Just another voice in the choir, another mind absorbed into the eternal song of the first speaker. The Talvaran had studied it for centuries before understanding. They had lost millions of their people before finding the truth. The first speaker wasn't evil in any way they could understand. It simply existed at a level where individual consciousness meant nothing, where absorption into a greater whole was seen as transcendence, not death. It's like a virus, Jiho said quietly, but instead of attacking cells, it attacks minds. Advanced minds. The more complex your thinking, the more vulnerable you are. Which explains why the Vrethians went mad, Doyun said. Their neural networks are incredibly sophisticated. Perfect targets when humans, the Talvaran, changed us, made us messier. Our thoughts are less organized, more chaotic, harder for the first speaker to grab hold of. He pulled up genetic data, comparing Talvaran DNA to human DNA. We're like a door that doesn't quite fit the frame anymore. Still descendants, still capable of accessing their technology, but different enough to resist. For how long? That was the question, wasn't it? The data suggested humans had natural immunity, but immunity wasn't the same as invulnerability. Given enough exposure, enough time, even humans would eventually fall. Soman's voice crackled through his helmet. 3 hours, Do-hyun. The fleet's not slowing down. I'm reading weapons charging. They're going to destroy the station to get to the anomaly. Can you get out of here? Not leaving you. Soman, not leaving you. Her voice was firm. Whatever plan you've got, I'm part of it. He looked at the displays again. The containment field around the anomaly was failing. Power readings dropped steadily. In 6 hours, maybe 8, the seal would collapse on its own. The first speaker would be free regardless of what anyone did, unless someone reset the field. He pulled up the specifications for the reset process. His hands shook slightly as he read. The containment system required enormous power. Power that couldn't come from the station's reactor. It had to come from a living source, specifically a living Talvaran, or in this case, a human with Talvaran DNA. The process would integrate his consciousness with the station's systems, make him part of the containment field itself, a living lock. He would keep the first speaker imprisoned, but he would never leave, never be free, never be fully human again. For the rest of his life, he would be part of the station, aware but apart, alive but not living. There has to be another way, Jiho said, reading over his shoulder. The Talvaran looked for one for 500 years. They didn't find it. So what? You're just going to sacrifice yourself? Lock yourself in this place forever? Would you rather I release it? Let it absorb every thinking being in the galaxy? I'd rather you not die. I won't die. Not exactly. I'll just change. Jiho grabbed his shoulders, forcing him to look at her. Listen to me. You don't know what you're agreeing to. The Talvaran could have been lying. This could be their prison, not their guard post. You could be locking yourself away to protect something terrible instead of stopping it. Do-hyun had thought about that, but he kept coming back to one fact. They destroyed their own civilization to stop this thing, scattered themselves across the galaxy, gave up everything they were. Why would they do that if they were the real threat? Because they lost a war? Because they were desperate? Because they were afraid of dying? Jiho's voice rose. People do terrible things when they're afraid. That's true. He looked at the displays showing the approaching fleet. But I still have to choose. He accessed the station's defensive systems. The Talvaran had built this place to last. Shields that could withstand sustained bombardment. Weapons that made modern military technology look like toys. All of it waiting. All of it ready. But using them required connection to the system. Required becoming the station. There was a third option. A worse option. He could destroy the containment field himself. Let the first speaker out and see what happened. Maybe it was telling the truth. Maybe it really could help. Maybe the Talvaran had been wrong. He thought about Captain Kelthar's final message. About Hyun lying in the medical bay, humming something that hurt to hear. About the Vrethian fleet coming to free something they didn't understand. No. The first speaker was exactly what the Talvaran thought it was. A beautiful poison. An infection wearing the mask of salvation. I'm resetting the containment, he said. I don't see another choice. There's always another choice, not one that keeps everyone safe. He moved toward the crystal pillar in the center of the room. The guardian's chair. The prison within a prison. As he approached, the crystals lit up brighter, welcoming him. Welcoming the return of their keeper. Then Jiho punched him. Not hard, just enough to knock him off balance. He stumbled backward, staring at her in shock. She stood between him and the pillar, her face set in determination. "I'm not letting you do this," she said. "You can't stop me. Watch me." She pulled out a small device from her pocket, a medical injector. Sedative, strong enough to put you out for 6 hours. Long enough for the containment to fail. Long enough for this to be over. Jiho, don't. You want to sacrifice yourself? Fine. But you don't get to make that choice without thinking it through, without considering every option, without asking for help. She didn't lower the injector. Contact Galactic Command. Tell them what's happening. Let them send a team. Let them handle this. There's no time, and then we make time. We hold off the fleet long enough for help to arrive. With what? My ship and Soman's transport against 23 warships. With this. Jiho gestured at the ancient systems around them. You said the Talvarin built weapons. So use them. Fight by time. Don't just give up and climb into that chair. Do-Yun looked at the approaching fleet on the display. At the timer counting down. At the containment field weakening with each passing second. Then he looked at Jiho, standing her ground, refusing to let him throw his life away without exhausting every other possibility. You're right, he said quietly. I'm rushing. Making a decision based on fear instead of logic. He stepped back from the pillar. Let me contact Command. See what they can do. He opened a channel to Galactic Command. It took 3 tries to get through. When he finally reached someone, it was a junior officer who didn't understand what he was talking about. Then a supervisor who thought he was joking. Then finally, someone who accessed the classified files and realized the situation was real. Hold position, the commander said. We're sending a fleet. 8 to 4 hours. The Vrithian ships will be here in 2 hours. Then hold them off. That's an order. The channel closed. Do-Hyun looked at Jiho. So much for help. We've got 2 hours, she said. What can we do in 2 hours? He studied the Talvarin systems. The weapons were there. The shields were there. Everything they needed to mount a defense. But it all required connection to the station. Required becoming part of it, maybe not completely. Maybe just enough to control it. A temporary connection instead of a permanent one. It would hurt. It might damage his mind, but it wouldn't lock him here forever. Probably I can link to the station, he said. Enough to control the defenses. It'll be risky. Riskier than climbing into that chair? Point taken. He moved to the pillar again, but this time he didn't approach the chair. Instead, he placed his hand on the crystal surface, the same place he'd touched before. Computer, I need to establish a temporary command connection. Is that possible? The voice in his mind responded. Temporary connection carries significant risk. Neural pathways may be permanently altered. Consciousness may fragment under strain. Recommend full integration for optimal performance. Not an option. Temporary connection only. Acknowledged. Establishing link. Warning. This will be extremely painful. Do-Hyun braced himself. The pain hit like lightning. He felt the station flood into his mind, every system, every sensor, every piece of data. It was too much. The shields buckled under another wave of fire. Do-Hyun felt each impact through the station's connection to his mind. Pain radiated through his skull, but he held firm. Through the sensors, he watched the Vrithian fleet reposition for another attack. They moved with perfect coordination, like a single organism instead of 23 separate ships. The first speaker was controlling them. Not directly. Vrithians were too logical for complete mind control. Instead, it whispered to them, showed them visions of what they could become, promised them knowledge and transcendence, made them want to set it free. Shields at 60%, Jiho called out, reading the displays. How long can they hold? 90 minutes. Maybe less. Do-Hyun's hands shook as he diverted power from non-essential systems. We need to break the first speaker's hold on those crews. How? You said humans are immune, but we can't broadcast that immunity. No, but the Talvarin systems can. He accessed the station's deeper functions, searching through ancient archives. There had to be something. The Talvarin wouldn't have built a prison without a way to protect the guards. He found it buried in the defense protocols. A counter frequency, not a weapon, more like a shield for the mind. It would broadcast a pattern that disrupted the first speaker's influence, break the connection between it and the Vrethian crews, but there was a cost. The frequency would cause immense pain to any Vrethian who heard it. Not permanent damage, but agony nonetheless. They would be screaming as their minds were forcibly freed. "I don't like this," Do-hyun said. "They're victims. They don't deserve to suffer. They're also about to destroy the station and free something terrible," Ji-ho replied. "Sometimes there are no good choices. Only less bad ones." She was right. He knew she was right, but it still felt wrong. The shields dropped to 50%. One of the Vrethian warships broke formation, moving closer. Its weapons charged for a focused strike that would punch through the barriers. Do-hyun made his choice. He activated the counter-frequency. The station's communication arrays lit up, broadcasting the pattern across every channel. The effect was immediate. Through the sensors, he watched the Vrethian ships falter. Their perfect formation broke apart. Some of them fired wildly into empty space. Others simply stopped moving altogether. He could imagine the crews inside, clutching their heads, screaming as the first speaker's beautiful lies were torn away. "It's working," Ji-ho said. "Half the ships are withdrawing, but not all of them." The flagship, the largest warship in the fleet, continued its approach. Its commander must have been too far gone, too deep into the first speaker's promises to be saved by mere pain. "That ship's going to ram us," Do-hyun said, watching its trajectory. "Impact in 3 minutes. Can you stop it?" The Talvaran weapons could destroy it, but the crew is still alive, still people who don't deserve to die for being manipulated. So what do we do? Do-hyun searched desperately through the station's systems. There had to be another way, some non-lethal option, something that could disable the ship without killing everyone aboard. Then he saw it. Not a weapon. A tool the Talvaran had used for station keeping and repairs. A tractor beam powerful enough to move asteroids, powerful enough to stop a warship. He activated it. Energy lanced out from the station, wrapping around the flagship like a giant hand. The ship's engine screamed, fighting against the hold. Metal groaned under the strain. "Structural integrity of that ship is failing," Ji-ho warned. "If you hold it too tight, it'll tear apart. If I don't hold it, it'll destroy us." He adjusted the beam, trying to find the balance between stopping the ship and crushing it. The connection to the station let him feel the flagship's hull flexing, feel the crew inside, confused and terrified, and still hearing the first speaker's voice. The ship slowed, stopped, hung in space just kilometers from the station, engines still firing uselessly against the tractor beam. "Got you," Do-hyun breathed. Then the containment field failed. Not completely. Not catastrophically, but enough. The anomaly pulsed bright as a sun, and through the sensors, Do-hyun felt the first speaker push through a crack in its prison. Just a fraction of its attention. Just a tiny piece of its vast consciousness. It was enough. The first speaker's voice filled his mind, no longer distant or muffled. "Clear and beautiful and terrible. Clever child. So much like your ancestors. Always fighting. Always resisting. Let me show you why you shouldn't." Images flooded Do-hyun's thoughts. He saw a galaxy free of disease. Saw civilizations working together in perfect harmony. Saw technology that turned planets into gardens and made faster-than-light travel as simple as walking. Saw himself not locked in a station but standing among the stars, sharing knowledge with beings from 1,000 worlds. All possible, all real, all waiting if he would just stop fighting and accept the gift. "It's beautiful," he heard himself say. "Do-hyun," Ji-ho's voice seemed far away. "Don't listen to it. Remember what the Talvaran said." But the Talvaran had been afraid. They hadn't understood. The first speaker wasn't trying to destroy anything. It was trying to save everyone. To lift them up. To make them more than they were. All he had to do was release it. Open the containment. Let it share its gifts with the galaxy. His hand moved toward the controls, toward the sequence that would drop the barriers completely. Then Somin's voice crackled through his helmet. "Do-hyun, snap out of it! Whatever that thing is showing you, it's lying." "How do you know?" he asked, his voice dreamy. "Because I'm watching the anomaly from out here, and what I'm seeing isn't beautiful. It's feeding on the Vrethians in that flagship. I can see their life signs dropping. Whatever peace it's promising you, it's killing people right now." Do-hyun blinked, forced himself to check the sensors. Somin was right. The Vrethians on the flagship, the ones still under the first speaker's full influence, their vital signs were weakening. Not from physical injury. From something else. Like their minds were being slowly drained. The beautiful visions in his head flickered. Behind them he saw the truth. The first speaker wasn't saving those Rethians. It was consuming them, adding their thoughts to its own. They were dying with smiles on their faces, thinking they were transcending. "No," he said firmly, "I'm not letting you out." The first speaker's presence in his mind turned from gentle to forceful. "You don't understand. You're limited, finite. Let me expand you. Let me show you what you could be. I'm happy being limited." He pulled his hand away from the controls and redirected all power to the containment field. The barriers strengthened. The crack sealed. The first speaker's presence retreated back into its prison, furious now instead of persuasive. Jiho grabbed him as he sagged against the crystal pillar. "Are you okay?" "No, but I'm me." He took deep breaths, pushing the first speaker's voice out of his head. "How long until the Galactic Command Fleet arrives?" 30 minutes. Can we hold that long?" He checked the systems. The shields were at 30% and dropping. The containment field was stable again, but weak, and he could feel the first speaker pushing harder now, angry at being denied. "I don't think so." "Then we use the Guardian chair. You said it would reset the containment permanently." Do-Yun looked at the chair. At his prison. At the choice he'd been avoiding. "There's one more option. Something I didn't think of before." "What?" "The Talvarin made this place to need a guardian. Someone to watch. Someone to maintain the seal. But they expected to have volunteers. People who chose this duty." He pulled up the Guardian protocols on the display. "What if we modify it? Make it temporary, rotations instead of permanent. Is that possible? The system is ancient, but it's also adaptable. The Talvarin designed it to last 10,000 years. They must have known things would change. That their descendants might find better solutions." He dove into the code, fingers flying across holographic controls. The pain from the station connection had faded to a dull ache. He could think clearly now. Could see the possibilities. The Guardian system required a living Talvarin descendant connected to the station. But it didn't specify one person forever. It just needed someone on duty. What if they could set up rotations? 6-month shifts. Different people taking turns. It wouldn't be a prison. It would be a job, a difficult job. An isolated job. But a job people could choose to do and eventually leave. This could work, he said, excitement building. We'd need to recruit people. Humans with strong Talvarin genetic markers. Train them. But it's possible. How do we find them? The station's sensors can detect the markers. We screen volunteers. Build a program. He was thinking faster now, seeing the solution. The other containment sites across the galaxy. They need guardians too. We could establish a whole network. The Talvarin core. Humans protecting the galaxy from threats no one else knows about. That's assuming we survive the next 30 minutes. Right. First things first. He looked at the Guardian chair again. At the temporary connection keeping him linked to the station. At the Vrethian fleet still out there, most of them free now but confused. "I'm getting in the chair," he said. "Do-Yun. Just for 30 minutes. Just until help arrives. Then we figure out the rotation system." He met her eyes. Someone has to hold this place together. Someone has to keep the first speaker locked up. Right now that's me. Jiho nodded slowly. 30 minutes. Then I'm pulling you out. He walked to the chair and sat down.